Eddie. Who's that from?
SpongeBob.
Thank you. Ooh,
Come on, you're
you
not gonna...
had me concerned for a second. You were like,
Joanna just gave me a SpongeBob quote right before we went live, and I was like, come on,
did.
man, it's SpongeBob. That's like the easiest thing in the world. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. Glad you're here.
yay!
On this fine Wednesday evening. I don't know how it is by you, but for us, it's been raining all day long. And it's spring break for me and for the boys, and so far we've had a, let's see, the weekend was marginal, and yesterday was cold, and Monday was cold, and today it's raining, tomorrow it's raining, maybe Friday we'll get a day where it's not raining all spring break. Luckily, it was a staycation. So I guess it didn't matter in the end. But I hope you're doing well. I hope the weather's nicer by you than it is by us. Thanks for being here. Glad you're here hanging out with the coolest people on the face of the earth. That's you. You. That is you. So we don't have a big giant topic planned for tonight. We do want to answer all of your fish keeping questions if possible. So that's kind of what our plan is this fine evening as we start getting closer to summertime. I like summertime. And we have to figure out, which kind of reminds me, we got to figure out what's going to go in the pond this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Last year we did, what did we do last year? We did guppies, and we did bristlenose plecos, and we did white clouds.
Yep.
The white clouds bred like crazy. The guppies did some breeding. The bristlenose plecos, they must have bred because the adults went missing, but we had a couple of babies in there when we pulled them out. So either the adults went from adult size and shrunk down to juvenile / fry size, or they went missing and a couple of little bitty ones survived. So we got to figure out what we're going to do. What we're going to do in the pond, right? It's at least in the Midwest, it's got to start thinking about it. And I've got some ideas up here. We just have to kind of work them out.
I don't know. I was really wanting to try like a tub pond instead, like a different.
Well, but this one's already set up. We can roll with this one. You can do a tub pond too.
It's already set up. You're so funny. In the gardening world, nothing is ever set up.
Well, there's
that's what
ponds in the ground and there's things surrounding it. That's kind of set up. So I would say it's ready to go.
Are you gonna like handle the broken heater for me then?
Yes, I will get the heater that you broke in the pond out of there as long as you drain
broken
the
glass.
pond. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but
whoops,
we've got more. So anyway. Things that happened this week in Primetime Aquatics and the Smallscape. Let's see what happened this week. On Monday, we did a video, and I'll be danged if I can't remember what that video was. Why is this every week?
Yeah,
we talk about the videos we've done,
ago.
and the video that we released 2 days ago, I can't remember what it is. It was that amazing. What was the video? You don't remember either, do you?
No.
I'm going to have to look it up.
No, I'm
Oh, I know what it was. It was the fish. Remember we were talking over the weekend? The fish that were too big for smaller tanks. You go to the pet store and you're like, these are cool fish, and these are some of the ones that often get bought and kept in smaller tanks, and they really shouldn't be. And a lot of you came up with other suggestions, like, I can't believe you forgot these. I'm like, oh, no. Right now, that was the first video where we talk about fish that often people try to cram into a 20-gallon or less. Don't you worry. We've got a whole different list of fish sometimes people get that initial 4-foot tank and like, all right, I can go crazy and get anything I want. We've got more for you. So that was Monday. And today, what did you do today on the Smallscape?
Oh,
Please tell us.
I had a 5-gallon Aquascape that I did. It's kind of a loose cave style. I've had I don't know if you would have seen it, but it's always been hanging out there. It's a really cool piece of Mapani that I had attached a piece of manzanita branch to it, and I just loved it. I just couldn't decide where I wanted to keep it. Well, I decided to put it in a 5-gallon and call it a cavescape, and I put a very tiny school of fish in there.
Yep, and that was the dealio there. And tomorrow back to Primetime Aquatics with the members only video, and then Friday I'm going to talk about those fish in a lot more detail that you put in a 5-gallon because they are really cool.
They are cool.
We only have 500 of them in the fish room right now. So we've only got 500, taking up 4 different tanks, including the one that you just did. So we'll have some pretty cool shots for you of those fish because we've got a lot. We're bringing a bunch of them to the green water swap, so that just segues right into where we're going to be. We'll be at the green water swap on the 10th of April. That's a Sunday. Green Water Aquarius society.org. And then later in the month on the 24th, we will be at the GCCA, Greater Chicago Cichlid Association, or gcca.net. We will be there. So those are the swaps we're going to be at next month. And we'll probably, unless some magical thing happens where we sell completely out of them at Greenwater, we will have them at both of the swaps along with a lot of other cool fish. The plan is to get the fish on the website sometime by Wednesday, Thursday-ish of next week for pre-order. So that's what we usually do. We try to get them at least by Wednesday or so for available pre-order so that people can make sure that the fish they want are going to be where they need them to be. And then I forgot, on Saturday on the small scape, you'll have some cool thing for us.
You bet.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So that's the story. That's the dealio. That's where we're going to be. That's the videos we have had and will have coming up this week. All right, let me see what's going on here because I saw a couple of green things come through, and that means we got some members who are celebrating some stuff, like Leo209. He's been a member for 5 months, which is cool.
Sweet.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
What's your opinion on the Fluval Betta Tank? I think it's a 2.6 gallon. Is it good or better off getting a bigger tank?
Yes. If that's the one I'm thinking of, did I ever grab a picture? It was at they had a big display at one of the big box stores, and it said Betta, and I was like, no, not generally, because it is, if I recall correctly, if this is the tank I'm thinking of, it is a portrait style tank, which doesn't give them a whole lot of horizontal swimming space, and yeah, it's just a little bit on the small side there.
And the problem, more so I think with that 2.6, is usually when they're doing the volume, they're also including the filtration compartment. So
True.
You're actually not getting that 2.6. And I know when we did the Betta species profile, I stated that a 2.5 is the minimum. And I will stand by that as a minimum. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely not an idealum. I just made that up.
Wow.
I definitely would prefer to see the Bettas in at least a 5 gallon, give them a little bit more space. So if you're looking at the Fluvals, the Fluval spec, like you just did that video you did with the fish today, really good tank. You got the Aquatop Pisces, whether that's the bullet shape or the portrait, right? They have I think 3 different 5 gallon shapes for the Aquatops. They're good tanks too. The other thing to consider with all of those all-in-one tanks, you normally for a Betta have to slow down the return because the water's coming in pretty hard, and so usually we'll put a piece of filter sponge over the return to slow the water down. We did that in a lot of these tanks here, the Lifeguard tanks here, the 8.3s. These are great tanks as well. And we slowed them down a little bit, but we wound up taking most of the filters, the sponges off the returns because it was like, it wasn't as necessary, I think, with that size tank. So that's the dealio there. Let me scroll on down here because, Brittany has been a member for 2 months. Thank you so much. Oop, just bumped hold on, I gotta move this thing because it's messing me up. If I got a 6 gallon long for a Betta, would you recommend not adding any other fish? What is the smallest tank size recommended for candy cane tetras? Okay, so that's kind of sort of what you did, right?
Yeah, I have the candy canes in a 11 long bookshelf tank. So what would you say for if you're going to keep candy canes, probably a minimum of 6, half dozen of them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's
like
usually the standard,
gallon?
And they're not very nippy or picky or anything like that. They get along in that minimum of 6. Sometimes people say, keep a group of 6, and we're talking about like maybe tiger barbs, like we mentioned in the video on Monday, or like your Buenos Aires tetras. It's like, don't do that because you're going to have one left, within 6 months. But with the candy canes, minimum of 6. I would probably prefer a volume of at least a 10 gallon. I would think standard 10. The 6 long is, although the 6 long is longer than a standard 10.
True, that's the one.
We have one.
Yeah, we do.
Where is it? Oh, it's your plants.
It is.
So if it's a 6 long bookshelf tank, you could do this candy cane tetras in there. The question is, are you keeping the Betta with the candy canes?
That would get too crowded, I think.
Yeah, I think the
Betta may have a.
I would probably feel more comfortable trying it if the Betta were a short fin variety or a female.
Right, and that's what I have in my 11 gallon is that's the combo that I have, Oreo with the candy canes, but it is, you've got that extra 5 gallons.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's borderline, I would say. That's how I would put it. It's borderline keeping the Betta with the candy canes in a 6 long. It could be done and work out fine. It might be a problem if either the candy canes decide the long fin Bettas are like, all right, let me just go ahead and taste these fins, and the Betta can't get away. Or the Betta's like, this entire tank is my volume, and starts harassing the candy canes a little bit. But you never know. Okay, let's see here. Sean, thank you very much for the super chat. Hey, Jason and Joanna, that's you. Hope all is well. I have 8 tanks going right now, thinking about starting a 20-gallon cherry shrimp tank. Would neon tetras or rummy nose tetras be okay for tank mates, or any ideas? They both will be okay probably with the adult cherry shrimp. If you want to do any breeding, most likely both of those fish will eat the shrimplets. Shrimplets are extremely small, so
they're cute.
Most fish other than like your smallest rasboras will probably eat the shrimplets. So if you care about having more cherry shrimp at some point, then they're usually best off with either really, 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 really tiny fish or on their own. So that's something to keep in mind. Leo, thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, got my Betta, aka Greedo, 5-gallon Pisces from John and Lisa. Was just thinking of getting another Betta tank for another one. Yeah, I would stick with the 5 gallons. The other thing too is if at some point you decide, oh, you know what, I like this 5-gallon and I'm moving on from Bettas, or I want something different, you have more stocking options later, obviously, with that 5-gallon than you would with the 2.5, where you're pretty much just stuck with, I got a mystery snail, or I kind of shoehorned this Betta in there.
Shoot. Oh my gosh.
I crammed this Betta into that tank.
It's a weird cartoonic image that I've got in my head now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Maybe so. Guess who's here? Fish fan 20-gallon long.
What?
Thank you for the super chat. My 9 red-eye tetras, poor man's silver dollar, school well in my 36 bow front. My 20 long 6-month guppies gave birth to 2 fry. Oh, that's cool. All plants are healthy thanks to your encouragement. Thank you so much. Well, that's cool. Thank you. So that's pretty cool. So we've got some red-eye tetras. I like the red-eyes. I haven't kept those in a while. And in a 36-gallon bow front, they're fine. That's another one, though. If you put those in a tank that's too small or don't have enough, they can kind of Buenos Aires tetra out on you and start knocking each other off. But in a 36-gallon with a decent group, I'm sure they're doing pretty well. And your guppies are having babies. That's cool. Mm-hmm. They're starting to get to that stage of their life where they're like, you know what? Us guppies need to settle down, have some fry, watch them grow up, maybe have some grandkids, which will happen a couple months later.
I was going to say, I don't think guppies ever settle down, but okay.
Well, I mean.
Yeah.
As opposed to being
retire.
Like crazy little juvenile guppies are like, yeah, we're just going to swim, we're going to eat, we're going to be crazy, maybe start a motorcycle gang. That's what they're going to do. What you got?
Cool.
You got something?
Anna wants to know, speaking of Bettas, how many Bettas do you have? What are their names? And what kind of setups are they in? All right, let's see here. I don't have too many right now. Actually, I'm on the low side of Bettas, I would say. But I've got Little Peanut. She's a little girl. She's very tiny, but she's growing. She's my coworker, so she sits right next to my desk. And she's in a 5-gallon. Let's see. Then I have Elizabeth. She is a crown tail. She's in my farm tank, which is a 20 long. So she's in there with green neons and my magenta mystery snails. Then I have Fireball. He is in an 8.3, like cube tank.
No, that's a 7.5. The 4 squares.
Yeah, that's right. I always want to call them
8.3s.
Those are 8.3s. I think I called these 7s and those 8s.
Oops.
No, whatever. 7 or 8, whatever. And then that's all by himself with a mystery snail. I've got Luna, also in a 7.5, and she's in with
White clouds.
White clouds and some Habrosus cories. Yep. And did I already say Fireball?
The one. What about the candy cane tetra one?
And then that's the last. But there's nothing above Oreo. No. Yeah, Oreo's the last one that I have in my 11-gallon bookshelf tank with candy cane tetras.
So you say not a lot, but that's 1, 2, 3,
like 5.
4, 5. 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you are low.
But I was up to like over a dozen.
Oh, way over, because you at one
Remember
point,
one in the kitchen? So 14? Was that up to 14?
yeah, because at one point when you had all the 2.5 stacked up like jail cells in when the first iteration of the Nano Nook,
I know.
you
That's
had
what it felt like.
10 in there at least. Yeah, you had
12.
12.
Yeah.
There were
No,
12
10.
2.5s? No, it was 10 2.5s. Anyway, you had a lot at one point, probably closing in on 20.
Yep, but not as many as Lisa.
No, they have a lot. They have a lot more.
She's a great fish mommy.
Yeah. Dylan, member for 12 months. Congratulations. Thank you so
Wow.
much. Hello. Have you ever tried anoxic filtration? I would love to hear Jason's perspective on them. As a biologist, I recently set up 2 of them. I know that's all the rage right now.
All the rage.
It's all the rage. It's all everybody's talking
trending?
about right now. It's trending, anoxic filtration. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to set up the second part of the nitrogen cycle, right? So a lot of I think to a fault what we do in the aquarium hobby is we talk about the nitrogen cycle, but we only talk about the nitrification process, the top half, which is ammonia to nitrite, nitrite to nitrate, and then you do your water changes and the nitrate goes away, or you've got plants that do that. But then there's the other half in nature that is nitrate reduction and denitrification. So you go nitrate back to nitrite, nitrite to often nitrogen gas or some other nitrogen-based compound that usually gases off from the aqueous environment. And so with the anoxic filtration, you're trying to accomplish that second part. The reason I'm not overwhelmed by that idea is, I guess, a couple things. One, you often need, so there's a couple ways you can do it. One, you can try to accomplish that by having the anaerobic bacteria in the substrate, or 2, as some part of a filtration process. The filtration process, when you're using the media that tries to promote an anaerobic environment, works best when you have a lot of media in a sump or a canister filter, but you're dedicating a lot of space to that media to accomplish that task. If you're trying to do it with a deep substrate, you can do that as well. The issue is, in a lot of cases, you really have to have a lightly stocked tank and something that would better reflect nature in terms of stocking per volume than the way most people try to do things in the aquarium hobby, and that is pack way more biomass per volume of water than we would ever find in nature. So I prefer, if I'm trying to reduce nitrates, to do what I'm doing here. And again, I pointed these tanks out, but there's 4 of them here, all 8.3 gallons. They all have standard filtration with basically just filter floss for the mechanical side. We're depending on the plants to deal with the nitrate. So we've got the beneficial bacteria that's accomplishing the nitrification process, the ammonia to nitrite, nitrite to nitrate, and then we're relying on the plants to keep the nitrates under control. And we have done, like I said, I've said this a number of times, but I did one water change like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we set it up, and I haven't done one since. Now, a few things. These tanks are stocked very lightly, so we've got very small fish with a very small bio load. The most heavily stocked tank is this one right here. Oh, my arm doesn't bend like that. Bad shoulders. Oh my gosh, Joanna.
Excuse me.
So this one here has got like 12 white clouds. That's probably the most heavily stocked tank that we have. But the nitrates are under control because it's a relatively heavily planted tank relative to the number of fish. I think the plants overall do a better job of nitrate control than most of the microbes that we would rely upon to do that other half. So that's the really long answer for it's not something I'm really going out of my way to try or deal with right now, because I just, why? If I've got plants, and even for people who can't grow plants, if you've got pothos, I saw a question about pothos in a tank. Yes, we use it, and a lot of people do, stick the stems in the water. Obviously the entire plant doesn't go in the water, but the stem does. It starts to grow roots. I've had some really cool tanks. In fact, if you go back to maybe 2019, some of the fish room like part 1 tours, you would see a 40-gallon breeder. It had all these roots. It looked really cool. It had all these roots along the back of the tank and along the sides. It was all pothos roots, and the pothos was growing on top. And as long as it had light and the stems were in the water, it was doing a really good job of pulling out nitrate. So that is kind of how we roll with it. But I'd be curious. I would love to hear how yours is doing. After a couple months, if you've noticed a change. I just don't think the way we generally stock tanks that it would make much of a difference, because we tend to, because of the fish we keep a decent amount of fish per volume of water. What you got?
TROC backwards. Do rummy nose school better in 30 than neons?
Probably.
Really?
Yeah, better? No,
My neons school pretty well.
Your greens do.
Well, the blacks always stick together.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I might call it a draw between the two. But rummies, I guess I would if I was going to pick one for schooling, I might lean towards the rummy nose.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
A little bit. Yep. But I don't think it's a drastic difference, but I just, in my brain, I'm thinking rummy nose slightly better schooling than the neons, at least from what I've seen. Some of you guys have probably experienced something different and be like, oh no, my rummy nose they all hated each other and they all stayed at different corners of the tank. Knowledge is power. Thank you very much for the super chat. I have a glow tiger barb with a single white spot on its tail. Been there for 2 weeks and no other spots. Acting great, no other fish sick. Should I worry? It's probably some type of bacterial thing or it got injured. Should you worry? Not necessarily, but that would be a fish that maybe you'd throw in a hospital tank and just treat it with some Maricin or Maricin 2 and just see if you can get it to go away. If it's something, just because some bacterial infections can spread, but it very well may have been something where like the fish got injured and now there's a little bit of growth there. Could go away on its own, but you said it's been a couple weeks, so that chance is reduced, but might be worth treating.
Matthew Dust Stuff is in Florida.
Well, that's nice.
For spring break. It's nice and warm. Only salt water over here, though, LOL. Very nice, though. But I miss Chicagoland. Well, don't miss it too much this week.
Trust me.
Enjoy your warm weather.
Yep.
You're not missing anything this week.
For sure.
Yeah.
Evan, thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Jason and Joanna. Y'all ever considered selling at the Indianapolis Club auction swaps? Not too far, right? Circle City Aquarium Club. The issue that we generally have when we go beyond the two that we do, the GCCA and the Greenwater swap, once you get to Indianapolis, so for us, Indianapolis is like a 3-hour drive. I've been wanting to do the Quad Cities because I hear it's a really good swap too. So for those of you who live in like the Iowa area, northwestern Illinois, southwest Wisconsin, right? So it's I think it's it's Quad Cities, whatever. Quad Cities.
Whip, have you ever gone there? Please talk.
So anyway, I'd love to do that one. Love to do Indianapolis too, but the problem is, as it is right now, we're generally bagging 40 to 50 bags of fish. I think the last swap we broke a record and we were in like the low 50s. For some, that's not a big deal. For us, it's the two of us and usually Eli, maybe Luke once in a while. When Luke is there, it's no problem because he's a pro. But when it's the three of us, that's a lot of fish to bag, and we bag our fish the morning of. So what that means, like on the 10th, when we do Greenwater, we are going to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's with a swap that's only a half hour away. If we were doing Quad Cities or we were doing Indianapolis, we got to add in another 2.5 hours of drive time. It's like, I don't want to get up at 1:30 in the morning. In fact, I'm not doing that. So, and I don't want to bag fish the night before because that means they will have been in a bag by the time the people get them home at least 24 hours, and that's pushing it, So I would love to. It's just the drive time, the logistics right now doesn't make sense for us. What you got?
Whip says that he could go flapjacks right now.
Flapjacks? Is there a bad time for flapjacks?
No.
Somebody's hungry. That's when you know, like, I could go for flapjacks, or French toast, or beef jerky, or
pizza.
Yeah, you just got, all of a sudden everything sounds really good.
Like, yeah.
All these things are really good. Chicken wings, asparagus. I could go for some tomatoes and salt. It's like, no, dude, you're just hungry. Andrew, thank you for the super chat. Just bought 2 CO2 generators for my planted 29 and 40 gallon. Where is the best placement for the diffuser with hang-on-back filter? Love the channel. Well, thank you. As far away from that hang-on-back filter as you can get. And I say that only because the hang-on-back filter is going to pour the water down, and then if you put the CO2 diffuser right next to it, it's probably just going to keep doing this and then gas off. So if you've got the CO2 diffuser on the other side, at least most of your plants will get that. That's what I would do, but you're also talking to a guy that doesn't run CO2, so please take that under consideration. But the problem usually with the CO2 generators is if you've got like sponge filters, bubblers that are just air powered hang-on backs, you want to be careful of those because sometimes they just blow all your CO2 right out the tank. And knowledge is power is a prime time partner, primate, prime timer. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoy the experience. Keith is here. Thank you for the super chat. I've read that a filter should process 3 to 4 times the volume of the tank every hour. Others recommend slower filtration to maximize time biological media contacts the water. Your thoughts, please. That's a great question. Yeah. That's a really good question. So, okay, again, the question is, you have competing issues going on when it comes to filtration. And that's the same thing when we're talking about sponge filters, right? The faster the water flows through a filter, any filter media, the less contact time there is between the food, which is the ammonia or nitrite, and the microbes that are going to break it down, that are stuck to the surface of that media. So yes, there are two schools of thought. One is we want a lot of turnover, and then you're going to get a lot more ammonia and nitrite that are going to be, that the microbes are going to be exposed to that more often. Or do we want to run it slower, and therefore that stuff is going to be moving slower so that the microbes can do what they do? I don't think it makes that big of a difference. In reality, I really don't. I don't think it matters. Here's where it does matter, and that is, are your fish being overwhelmed by current if it's too fast? Is your diffused oxygen too low if it's going too slow? Okay, I think that's the bigger issue when it comes to the rate of filtration. So when it comes to the rates, is it's too fast, or now your fish are being blown all over the place and they're having a hard time. So I'm thinking, okay, you've got a Betta in one of these all-in-one tanks that we've been talking about, where the filter's really pushing the stuff out, and now the Betta's stuck in a corner, right? Or you've got longfin guppies, or you've got long, veil tail angels, and they're fighting a current. That's a much bigger issue than, oh my gosh, are my microbes going to be able to do the conversions they need to do? But just as importantly then, on the other side, if your fish are not getting the oxygen they need because the water flow is too slow, that's a bigger issue than the whole nitrification process. Because here's the deal, I find it doesn't really matter, right? We've got 80 tanks. Some of our sponge filters are running a lot slower than others. We've never had an ammonia or nitrite spike in those established tanks ever that I'm aware of. I mean, it's not that I'm testing the water every few days, but all the fish do well. They're healthy. The other thing to consider when it comes to the flow is the mechanical side, because that does have a big impact. The more the water is running through your media, the more likely the stuff that's in the water, so your fish waste, your uneaten food, the detritus that gets kicked up, the more likely it is going to be caught in the filter media. That is going to be more efficient if the filter is moving a little faster. So I think those other issues are a much more important factor than whether or not the microbes are going to have the contact time necessary to convert the ammonia and nitrite to eventually nitrate. I don't think that's an issue. I think a lot of people think that through and think it might be a problem. I just don't think it is in reality. If it were, then we would have much bigger issues in nature where you've got fast moving streams, although that's kind of a flow through system. It's not quite fair, a good comparison, but you get my point. So I don't think it matters. So
Wendy just got 10 orange Von Rio Tetras from Flip Aquatics.
Sweet, cool.
And was wondering if she should have anything else with them in a 15-gallon column tank.
How many?
10.
10. First of all, those are cool fish. And when we got ours from Flip, they did really, really well. The orange Von Rios, so 10 of them in the 15-gallon column. Mm-hmm. You probably are going to want something for like the bottom. Maybe that's some Habrosus cories, or maybe you're going to do a bristlenose pleco, because those column tanks are really tall, so they would work out just fine. A clown pleco would work out just fine. Mm-hmm. I could see a situation where you throw a honey gourami or a dwarf gourami in there. That would work out just fine. I don't know if I'd go too much. Like maybe I would do, what's my centerpiece fish going to be? So maybe that's a honey gourami or a dwarf gourami. Maybe I put half a dozen Habrosus cories at the bottom and a bristlenose and just call it a day. But cool tank. I like it.
Bunch of cories would be super fun.
But the Habrosus or the pygmies, I don't know if I'd go too crazy with just the standard cories, because they get too big, and that footprint's not very big.
Exactly.
All right, let's see here. Dustin, thank you very much for the super chat. How do you sterilize a tank after disease? tank decor, hang on back plants, etc. All the fish are gone. Want to make sure everything is safe for new fish. That's a great question. All right, so we had a tank. It depends on the disease, partially. If it's ick, I just turn the temps up, keep the meds in for about a week, and 99 times out of 100, actually 100 times out of 100, I've never had a problem after that. Because if there's no fish in the tank, and I turn those temps up to, like, let's say 85, and I keep my ick in the tank for another week, all the ick is going to be dead, because that at 85 degrees, first of all, we're getting close to the point where the ick can't even survive. And if the ick that was in the substrate starts to excistate and start to look for a host, it's going to do that really fast, usually within 24 to 48 hours. By a week's time, it's done. There's nothing left. You will still, believe it or not, most likely have some beneficial bacteria in the filter, on the surfaces of stuff, in the substrate, so that if you add new fish very slowly, like maybe I add 1 or 2, make sure everything's okay. Obviously get the temperatures back down, get the meds out. But that's usually how I handle that. If it was a bacterial thing that might have been a little bit more stubborn, or I don't know what caused it, there's a few things you can do. One, you can take everything out. You can bleach the plants, if they're fake, obviously, not if they're real. But if they were fake plants, decorations, 10% bleach solution in a bucket, leave it there for 24 hours, take the stuff out, rinse it really well. If you want to break down, if it's a small tank like a 5-gallon or 10-gallon, it's really easy just to, like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and just redo the substrate, and I'm going to redo the filter media and clean out the filter with a 10% bleach solution, get new media, and basically just reset it up. You can do that. But I would prefer not to have to go through all that, because when you start tossing the substrate away, that kind of stinks. The other thing that you could potentially do is drain the tank down to the point where you basically got barely any water, and you could throw hydrogen peroxide, just a bottle in there, and fill it up, drain it out a couple times, should be okay. But I would prefer to just put the meds in, turn those temps up to 85, wait a week or two, and then see if we can start adding fish and not have a problem. Elizabeth, thank you very much for the super chat. I've got a new 50-gallon cycled and planted. Was going for angels. Now I'm conflicted. Wanting Shelley's or cribs. Thoughts? Well, those are all different fish, but the cribs and the angels you can keep together. So that's kind of a win, right? So 2 of the 3 work well together.
Yeah.
I would only do 1 angel in a 50-gallon, because at first you can do multiples, and then as they grow and mature, you might run into problems and have them fighting or vying for breeding territory, or if they have fry, now you got a bigger problem. So that's something to think about. Cribs aren't as nasty, so if they do start having babies in a 50-gallon, usually they'll just kind of be like, okay, stay away from our immediate area, but they're going to leave in a 50-gallon probably most of the fish alone for the most part. And the fry will eventually go missing in a community tank anyway, especially if you got like faster moving tetras or something in there. So the advantage is with the cribs and the angels in a 50, you've got your schooling tetras and maybe something like cherry barbs or large rasboras and your cories. So you've got that kind of feel. If you go the Shelley route, then I would not put the cribs and angels and tetras and stuff. Then it's more of a Lake Tanganyika setup, which is still totally awesome because I love that. But now you're going to be a little bit more limited in terms of your stocking options. So maybe like, okay, I'm going to go with Maltese, or I'm going to go with Similis, or I'm going to go with Brevis at the bottom. The 50 gallon's still tall enough where you could put something like a Cyprichromis at the top, maybe throw in a bristle nose or 2 for algae control, and then call it a day. So but they're all great, you know. And the cool thing about the if you go the multi direction or the cribens or the Maltese and Sips, the Sips are going to breed pretty well. So you're going to see little babies, and they're super cute. And the Maltese, depending on how you have the tank set up, you got lots of rocks, lots of shells. Some of the fry might survive too. The Sips might pick off a few, but it just happens. Killer Kitty 08, thank you very much for the Killer Kitty sticker.
Aww.
That's its new name. What you got?
That's very appropriate. Okay, Fish Fan 20 L long. Movie quote. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Tina, bring me the axe.
Tina, bring me the axe. Do you know this one?
No. When I first read Tina, I thought it was going to be Napoleon Dynamite.
So did I.
Food,
and then all of
Tina.
a sudden I was thinking like Fargo or something like that. I don't know why. Probably the wood chipper scene, but that's not an axe. Tina, bring me the axe. I don't know. You're going to have to let us know. I don't know.
Oh,
did it almost come to you?
is it? I'm wondering, is it like a 80s, 90s like funny movie?
Maybe.
All
right, well, you think about it.
Yeah,
Regina, thank you very much for the super chat.
Let us know.
Are you helpful? You are so helpful and encouraging. Are you helpful? My gosh, I hope
always.
so.
No.
You are so helpful and encouraging. Well, thank you. My Oscar jumped out of the tank going after the food I was feeding. He was earthbound for a moment. I put him back in and he immediately started eating bloodworms. So that's good. So he didn't fall very far.
Wow.
That stinks. I actually had. So if you go to the Wayback Machine, I'm sure some of you remember some of the fish room tours I did of the 125, the bottom 125, which I actually think is a 135. There were 3 Oscars in there. It was supposed to be just their tank. There was an albino and 2 reds. Well, now there's no Oscars in there because they all died. But one of them jumped, and I basically found it, and the fish was still kind of sticky. So I was like, all right, well, just a rule of thumb, if you ever find a fish on the floor and it's still kind of sticky, it might be worth taking like a breeder net or a net, depending on the size of the fish. Try to put it back in some water, maybe in the tank, and see if the gills will start going again. He did. He started to revive, and I put him in a 10-gallon on his own, but he never did fully make it back. He couldn't upright himself, so that was really sad. But I'm glad that yours was like, all right, you know what? I jumped, and that was weird, but I'm still hungry, so I'm going to eat. So that's good news that yours was fine. But that's a pro tip for you. Fish ever jumps, still sticky. The stickier and if it's still wet, you might still be okay. Now, if it was a really long fall on tile or something, that could be a different story. It might have knocked its noggin loose like my Oscar did. Nick, thank you for the super chat. 20 high with 2 apistos, 10 harlequins, 5 black phantom tetras. Why are my schooling fish sticking to the lower third of the tank? They are active. Why are they sticking in the lower third? That's just where they like it. There's nothing wrong with that. Harlequin rasboras, I'm trying to think what they do. An R40, they're probably mid-water. The black phantoms, for me, never really actually schooled at all. They just kind of all split up and did their own thing. And the tanks that I always had them in, I had them in a few different sizes. One of them was a 125, and they just did whatever they wanted to do. They had a mind of their own. They're like, yep, you think just because you call us a tetra, we're going to stay together? Watch this, man. Just wasted your money. We're cool looking, and boom, they all split up. And I was like, oh, thanks a lot for that. That was really not what I was hoping for. But I do think the black phantom tetra, is that my favorite tetra? Probably. It probably is. So that's cool. But I wouldn't, if they're happy, healthy eating, whatever. Let them do what they want to do. Eventually they'll figure out, especially if those apistos are a male, female, and they start breeding. They're like, we're going to go up here and leave you guys alone with your kids because we don't want any problems here. And the apistos will be like, that's a good idea because we don't want any problems either.
Okay, I'm going to grab a few here. Oopsies,
okay.
Hit the wrong button. Let's see. Jennifer, Mommy Dearest. That quote must have, I saw a couple of Mommy Dearest, so that must be where it's from. That's not the movie I was thinking of. I don't know what I was thinking of. Whip says, hit the dollar sign. I don't know what that means. Kyle, can I keep male and female Betta together? Not unless you plan on breeding them and you know like what you're doing. I've never actually done that. There's lots of videos if you were to watch Creative Pet Keeping or Simply Betta. They'll talk a lot with the breeding side of Bettas, which is it's a particular way you need to do that so that they don't,
Yeah, basically you've got to make sure that they're both ready to breed. Add in one of the fish. I don't know which one's better. I really don't know. Because the fish that we kept, the bettas that you can keep together are the Betta Mahachai, which we kept together in a 7.5. Never had a problem. But with these, it's basically the only reason you're keeping them together is to breed, and then you get the female out as soon as the bubble nest has been made, and the eggs are there because the male will then kill the female. Yep, Elizabeth, member for 7 months. That's cool. Thank you for being here. Thanks. I've got a 75 cichlid tank and a 20-gallon platy tank. Can you tell me the correct spelling for platies? Just one T.
No, with the Y. Is it YS or IES? I've had that same question. I think it's. I think I might have even looked it up once.
Yeah, I always get auto corrected back to the YS, and then when I look it up on the internet, the YS gives me like the predominant results. So I am not an English teacher, and most of my spelling is horrible. So
I wonder.
Which may surprise you, given my profession, but I'm not the best speller in the world. I go Pleiades with a Y. That's just how I do it. But Molly's comes up IES a lot more frequently. So it's the weirdest thing. Spinster Sister, thank you very much for the super chat. 10-gallon tank too small for 10-gallon tank too small for red neon blue eye rainbows. Yes. The only rainbow, I'm not even sure the Furcata rainbows would be good for a 10. There's smaller rainbows out there, like the Furcata rainbows. The 4 red neon. Can you look those up? Because those might be a smaller version too. If they're the standard rainbows or even the dwarfs, they're usually way too big for a 10.
What are they?
4 red neon blue eye rainbows. Because I just want to make sure it's not like another name for the like the Furcata types. Because I'm not a rainbow expert. Let me see. Oh, you know what? They are pretty small. I've never kept these. I'm going to say maybe. How about that? And a 10-gallon, probably. I would probably do it. Just keep that. What I do know is keep a lid on that tank because they will go flying out. And I mean cover that tank. Even the little nooks and crannies in the back, because they will jump. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, things are skipping around. Bobda, thank you very much for the super chat. How do you attach high quality lights like Phoenix, etc., while have a non-glass hood on your tanks to prevent fish from jumping out? The non-glass hoods, I use a lot of the polycarbonate, the greenhouse siding, the 8 mil, and I don't worry about that all that much. I mean, there's been plenty of times I've just rested that light right on the polycarbonate. It's never gotten to a point where I worry about it. Or any signs of it melting or anything. I mean, it's greenhouse siding, so it's pretty hardcore. It just depends on what you have in there, or what you have as a lid. You said non-glass hood. Now, if it's just some cheap plastic, then usually the Phoenix lights, they come with just the little extenders. Use those. It usually extends it at least an inch or two. If you find that the plastic is stinky or deforming, then maybe you have to try something else. But in that case, what would often work best is if you took some like picture hanging wire, wrapped it around both sides of the light, and then if you were able to attach it, maybe it's like this, you've got some kind of a structure above it where you can hang the light down. That would be something you could do. What you got?
Did you get the super chat from Nick?
I did.
20-gallon high with 2 Apistos, 10 Harlequins?
Yes. We covered that one.
Okay, so I thought.
Yes, ma'am. We covered that one. I'm on my game tonight, I think.
All right, Trinafish Hobbyist TV. Hello, everyone. My son loves watching with me. Cool. Big fans. Oh, please shout him out. Syed from Trinidad and Tobago.
Well,
wow.
Hello,
welcome. Good
Glad
morning,
you're
good
here.
evening.
Yeah,
good afternoon.
All the way from across the world. Thanks for being here. Glad you're here hanging out, watching fish nerds like us. Michael, appreciate the super chat. Butt tanks, 13 20-gallon isolation and 14 33-gallon. Holy cow, I got to take this in. I'm going to live vicariously through you buying new tanks. 13 20-gallon isolation and 14 33-gallon longs today. That's
wow.
Going to be awesome. Not sure yet on stocking for 33 long, but thinking about a pair of Lelupai. Getting ready to order a 180 and a 240 soon. Well, you're going to have quite the fish room there.
Man.
For the 33 long, you can do more than a pair of Lelupai. You can do at least a half a dozen, and let them kind of stake out their own claim in the different rock work and stuff. If you're looking to do this on the cheap with the decoration, if it's like a breeding thing you're looking to do, then just use a ton of flagstone. That's what we do. Yeah, I know you've probably seen it in a number of our tanks.
Stack.
Yep, that works really well for like the Juliochromis types and the Lelupai. All the rock-dwelling lake Tanganyikans, they'll kind of sneak their way in there, and you will start to see fry. But that's really cool. You did the right thing with the 33 longs, because you can triple stack those where the 55s. I've always said that one thing I would change in our fish room where I've got the double 55s, I wish I would have gone 333 longs there like I did on the other wall, because they're just easier to work on, and I like the fact you can triple stack them, which is my thing. Dakota, appreciate the super chat. What 2 large schools of fish would you suggest for a 75 gallon that has 8 panda cories, a clown pleco, and 3 angelfish, fully planted tank? Oh, I got lots of suggestions for a 75. I mean, you got a million options there. You got anything? Angelfish now, so we got to be careful. Can't go too small.
Did you like diamond tetras?
It might get a little nippy with the angels, but maybe. You got the candy canes, which might be okay. You got the brilliant green rasboras. You've got pretty much all the different types of rainbow fish.
Oh, white skirts, black skirts.
We did okay with that combo in a 125, but there's been a lot of people that said that their white and black skirts were nipping at their angels as well, so be a little careful with them. Let's see. So you got all your rainbows, your brilliant green rasboras, your harlequin rasboras. Gosh, you've got a lot of options. And the black phantom tetras, that's one of my favorites. Those would probably work. I've kept those with angelfish without any issues before. What else? I'll think of more, but you've got a lot of options. Basically, pick it as long as they're not nippy and as long as they are not too small. So when I say too small, full-grown angels and the neon types, you're getting really close to, would you once in a while have them go missing if the angels are growing larger than the neons? Sometimes it works. Sometimes you get some neons that go bye-bye.
BOBBDA. Chili and Kubutai rasboras are only 3/4 of an inch. So could they get attacked and killed by bigger nanofish such as gobies and cherry barbs, which could become aggressive?
Probably not the cherry barbs. The goby is the size of like a Hennechuensis.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, because they've got a big mouth. So like the Stiphodons or whatever, the smaller skinny ones, no, they're probably going to be fine because those ones are they stay small. They have a smaller mouth. But like the Hennechuensis types with the larger mouth, even though they only get about 3 inches or so, I could definitely see them eating the smaller rasbora types for sure.
Because chilies are pretty stinking tiny.
Yeah. Katie says, new to the hobby and have a 29-gallon trying to cycle tank, but my ammonia and nitrites are constantly at 0.5 ammonia and 5 nitrites. Here's we did a video on how to instantly cycle a tank. There's 2 things you can do. One is if you've got used filter media from a trusted source, just throw that in your filtration, your filter. That tends to work well, and it's free. If you don't have that, or you're worried about the source, where it's coming from, then you've got the companies that sell the live nitrifying bacteria. We are sponsored by Fritz Aquatics. They have a great live nitrifying bacteria called Fritzzyme 7. You dump that in, and in this case, since you've already got a spike, even the Fritz Turbo Start would be useful. And then usually within a couple of days, you can wave bye-bye to that ammonia and nitrite and start adding fish very slowly. So whenever you are setting up a new tank, even if you've got the cycled media in it, but everything else in it is new, we generally add fish relatively slowly so that we don't, wind up with the problem.
M&C Aquatics says, wait, Chaz died?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you even know his name. Yeah. So, he was the last Oscar Chaz. That was about a year ago. And it was the weird. So we had, at that time, I mean, was that a year ago or 2 years ago? So we did some videos, and it happened back to back or not back to back, but back to back when we did the videos, which, I mean, they were spaced out. I know I'm not making any sense, but all right, we start over again. We did a video where we were talking about the fish that are, like really great fish. And we featured Timmy, our tilapia, who's 18.5 inches. Great fish, nicest fish in the world. He was just a really nice guy.
He was a nice
very
guy.
Friendly. Did that video, put him on the thumbnail. 2 days later, he was dead. Just straight up dead. No, like, oh, I'm going to stop eating. I'm going to get weird looking.
Or something.
Yeah. Then we did a video on, I think it was like fish with the best personality. This was maybe a month or two later. Chaz was on the thumbnail. It was kind of like the EA Sports where you don't put, like the guy who's on the NFL Madden cover usually gets hurt that year. Well, this was every time we put a featured a fish on a thumbnail, within a couple of days that fish was dead. And that happened to Chaz where he was eating just fine. All of a sudden, one night I go down there, he's bloated. I'm like, oh no, Chaz, what's going on, buddy? So the next morning, that was that night. I'm like, all right, in the morning, I got to deal with this. I got to figure it out because he's a bigger fish. I'm going to put him in a 10-gallon. I got to find space. And I came down the next morning, he was dead. So, yeah, it really sucks.
Totally.
Mary Page Flynn, we're having 70-mile-an-hour winds here.
Really?
Well, don't go outside. How's that for advice? Don't
Brilliant.
go outside. By the way, thank you to all the moderators who are here. Wendy and Mary Page and Dave from Iowa. And
Dave,
James is here.
Killer
and Wendy,
Kitty 08.
Killer Kitty 08. Yeah, we got a whole big crew.
Oh my goodness.
So thank you. Thank you very much for hanging out with us, making all the things happen.
You
moderators
guys have the best moderators in the world.
Yep. We are very blessed to have them in our lives because they make the live stream so much easier where I can answer questions and I know that they're just doing fun stuff. So they are very, very, very,
helpful.
Very much appreciated. Tell them all we appreciate you. EJ, any experience with Celebis, rainbows, fish, and are they sensitive to meds? Yes, that was the other one too. I was thinking of furcadas, Celebis, rainbows. We had them in the fish room not long ago. We brought a bunch to swaps. One of my peeps around here, she did a big aquascape, and we put, what did we put in there, like 15 or something in a 125. Great fish. Are they sensitive to meds? I've never had to treat them, so I don't know. But I will say that's another one where keep the tank covered because they will sometimes go airborne on you. But love them. They're really, really good fish. And they do well in our water, which is something I'm always looking at when I bring fish in for these swaps. I want to make, one of the reasons why I quarantine them for 4 weeks is I want to make sure, yes, they're disease-free, they're eating, but I also want to make sure that the people who live around here who have similar water parameters as we do, that they're getting fish that are going to do okay in their water. So, yeah, but they did great. Kobe, appreciate the super chat. I just started hatching baby brine and was wondering how do I know how much to hatch? How much do I feed? And is it okay for it to be their only diet? That's a lot. Those are a lot of good questions. So I did a video, actually 2 videos, I think, on how to hatch it. So maybe you've seen those. When it comes to how much to hatch, it really depends on how much you need to feed. So we have obviously a lot of tanks, and we have a lot of fish that will eat live baby brine. By the way, all small fish will eat live baby brine. What I mean by that is your small tetras, your neon-sized tetras, your rasboras, your guppies, your endlers, our shell dwellers eat this stuff, our tiger limia, our caudopunks. You'll see lots of fish that you wouldn't think would eat it go absolutely crazy for it. It really comes down to practicality. And so I've mentioned this maybe last week or 2 weeks ago in the video that I did on how to set it up. I basically just take a 1-liter bottle, cut off the bottom, and then turn it upside down and use the bottom as a support. And I leave the cap on the top. That's about 1 liter of water. And so I fill that up. I put in 2 tablespoons worth of salt and then 1 heaping teaspoon of live baby brine. But that feeds out quite a bit. I mean, that feeds out a lot. So the thing is, you want to be really careful with live baby brine because that sweet spot where they provide nutrition to the fish is somewhere between that 18 to 24 hours. At roughly, I think our fish room temperatures back in that area, we don't use a light. I know in that one video I said, hey, shine a light on it. That was more for the warmth, and the light does help it hatch. We don't use the light, but the fish room in that area is probably close to 80 degrees. And obviously we're bubbling it and everything, a lot of air. That feeds a lot, but that's 18 to 24 hours. If you go even 36 hours, certainly 48 hours, once you get to that 36 to 48 hours, if you've left it in there too long, the live baby brine has consumed most of the nutrients that it had to grow. And now what you're doing is you're basically feeding your fish barely alive exoskeletons, which isn't very nutritious and it can kind of mess up their digestive system. So you just want to be careful with that. You can cut that back. So then if you're like, okay, well, if I did a teaspoon of live baby brine and that was way more than I needed, A, you can put it in the fridge. That will buy you a little bit more time. B, then cut it back. I'm like, okay, I'm going to use a half liter of water. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of salt. I'm going to use a half a teaspoon of live baby brine, and that gives me what I need. So you can try that. It takes a little bit of experimentation. In terms of it, can it be their only diet? For fry, yeah, for a while. I mean, it's very, very, very nutritious stuff. But I don't think I have any tank where that's exclusively what goes in, unless they are fry, where that's the only thing they're really interested in eating at first. But eventually they all get transitioned into various types of North Fin flakes or micro pellets or various size pellets, along with the live baby brine. What you got?
Samuel would like to know, what fish would you put in a 3-gallon cylinder tank with driftwood sticking out and no top? So no Betta, yeah, because probably would jump. That's Heteraneu formosa. You could totally do that.
Yes.
In a 3-gallon.
Heteraneu formosa is also known as the fleur-de-lis killifish. You could do, I don't know, mystery snails for some reason. I mean, they don't jump out of here, but you could find them on the ground. That's not an uncommon thing. Yeah. For some reason, they'll just kind of crawl in between tanks, which means they are getting out, and these tanks are not covered. So, but 3 gallons pretty tight, right? So it's not like you've got a ton of options there. Mm-hmm. One came to mind, and then I forgot. I'll think of it later. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, things just jumped around on me everywhere. Hold on a second here. Hold on. Canascia? I hope I'm saying that right. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. What exactly are swordtails? Like, are they mollies or platies? I've got a 20-gallon vertical cylinder tank with a smaller 10-gallon breeder looking for different types of mollies to add to my bunch. Yeah, swordtails are a different fish. All right, so obviously the swordtail, the females look a lot like mollies. They look like elongated platies, but they are a different type of fish, different species. And the males obviously get the sword. I would be careful with swordtails and mollies in smaller tanks, like less than 29 gallons especially. For me, if I were keeping swordtails, and I don't have any swordtails in the fish room right now. I haven't had them in a while. But if I were keeping swordtails, I would probably want at least a 29 gallon. Same thing with mollies. Sailfin mollies, I usually go larger. We've talked about that a couple times in the last few weeks. But I tend to like larger tanks. For a 20 gallon, if I really want the live bears, then yes, I might do the platies. That would be something that could work. 10 gallon, you said a 10 gallon breeder. So I'm not familiar with that size. I wonder, so is a 10 gallon breeder basically a standard 20 only cut in half? I still would stick with platies in either one of those tanks, because the mollies can get aggressive and swordtails can't too. That was the main point, is especially swordtail mollies, or swordtail males and mollies, they can get a little bit more aggressive than people realize, I think, sometimes.
Some dude says that the red neon blue eye are less than an inch long.
Yeah, once I saw the picture, I realized they were pretty small.
Wow, I didn't know they came that small.
Yeah, they'll be fine. I think it was a 10 gallon. Just keep it covered. That's the big thing.
Just cover it.
Nanners, appreciate the super chat. Got me a 75 with 2 dojos, giant danios, 2 cribs, and albino threadfin acara. Ooh, cool. On the way, so pumped. What should I get for the top of, if anything? Okay, so we got 2 dojos. That's going to be hanging out the bottom. Giant danios. I don't know if you've kept giant danios before. Probably have, but those fish are freaks. Oh my gosh, they are.
More so than regular? They're like danios on coffee?
Yeah, I think they're even more active than regular danios, because they're more streamlined, and they've kind of got this wiggle that they do, where the regular danios are more like jerky. But giant danios, they are nonstop, 100% all the time, crazy on the go. I like them, but they're crazy. So the question is, the giant danios are going to hang out at the top. If you've got a big group of them, just trust me, that's all you want, because the rest of the fish will be like, dude, settle down. Now, if you've only got like 4 or 5 and you want to do something else, and then rainbow fish are fairly active. They might not get too stressed out by that, but if you got giant danios up there and you're planning to do like a big old group, that's your top fish, because they're just going to go nuts. But yeah, going to be a cool tank.
We have some information confirmation from Tom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Grown clip bonsai for seniors. According to Webster, either way, platies with a Y-S or platies, I-E-S, or platyfish or platyfishes. Any of those four, take your pick.
Tom,
Thanks, Tom.
You're the man. Appreciate the
Cheers.
clearing that up, because that actually makes me feel better that I'm not spelling it wrong half the time. Turns out we have a little bit of freedom. Tasha13, appreciate the super chat. Hi, from Australia. Well, hello. Thanks for being here. Love you guys. I recently got a 5-centimeter orange head tapajos. Nice. What is the growth rate like? How long till it's around 2 inches? Growth rate is extraordinarily slow for the Geophagus and the tapajos too. I wish I would have continued it, but I didn't. I started to do a video series on basically taking the Geophagus tapajos from their birth until they're all grown up. The problem was I shot a video basically showing them when they were smaller and then slightly larger, and then the swaps happened and everybody wanted them and I sold them, and then I had nothing left to document. But they're slow growers. And I have found that they are particularly impacted by the size of the tank. So let's say you've got them in a 10-gallon or a 20-gallon because they're so small. Like, I want to move them to a larger tank later. Move them sooner rather than later, because I have found that if you keep them in too small of a tank, it does make them grow even slower. So a little bit of patience with the Geophagus. Have to have patience in terms of the color too, because it's going to take them a little while to color up, but it's obviously you've done your research. I'm sure the reason you got them is because you saw how cool they are. It just takes a little bit of time and you will be rewarded.
Love, Dream, and Drone. Do you only reply to super chats? I'm a member and I got skipped for my question.
Hey.
Well, you can try again. We do try and get as many as we can, but we can't get every single one.
Yeah, but
I wish we could.
Yeah, but re-ask it, because
for sure.
No, we don't only reply to super chats.
No,
we try to reply to lots of questions.
Try to get a variety. And yeah, it's usually wherever we're at in the chat. Sometimes I'm way up at the top. You're at the bottom. I'm in the middle.
And mine gets stuck
I thought
too.
I was down at the bottom, and then I just realized I was like 5 pages way up there.
Tesla Killdozer coming out with the 1001. Thank you, Tesla Killdozer. I have giant Danios in with my Severums Geos and electric blue cars. Awesome ditherfish, and they are psychos. LOL. Yeah, that's a good combination for sure. I'm surprised that the Severums sometimes don't get angry with them, because like, hey man, just chill out. I'm not really in the mood for that kind of speed. Victoria, appreciate the super chat. Can a Starry Night cichlid and an Oscar be together in a 75 or 90, both juvenile? Juveniles, maybe. I think what will wind up happening is your Starry Night is going to beat the snot out of that Oscar, potentially, as they get older. Those Starry Nights, for those of you who don't know, Starry Night cichlid is from Madagascar, and most of the most of the Madagascar cichlids get fairly aggressive as they get older. So I have a friend on Instagram, and she's got a really, really nice Starry Night in I think it's a 120, planted 120 even, and it looks really good. It thing's 9 inches now, and it's a beast. I think I know she tried to put other cichlids in with that fish and decided this is not working. And some of those fish that were in there at one point they could hold their own too, but those Starry Nights can be, you're probably going to want to just pick one.
Let's see. Oh, Tasha wants another fish room tour.
I know.
You're cracking, man.
I feel really bad, because usually those fish room tours come out once a year. They come out in January. It is now going to be April. I haven't done it. I need to. I'm going to try to put that on my list of things to do this month, and know that it's man.
Gotta do
it's
it,
late,
man. Gotta do it.
I messed up.
I got another. Pie Girl 1985. How do you clean a 5-gallon that had a betta that died of cottonmouth?
So cottonmouth, if we're talking cottonmouth because it's a fungal infection, usually the fungal infections happen because the temps are too low. And if it's a fungal infection, they don't like warm temperatures. So I might that's one of those ones where you could add the meds that you would normally add for a fungal infection and turn the temps up to 85 for a couple weeks, and most likely things are going to be okay. It's a 5-gallon, so if you're not comfortable with that, you can break that thing down, bleach the decorations, change out the media, rinse, clean out the filter, and
let it all dry.
Yeah, that's another thing too, and I forgot to thank you, because I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the last scenario at the beginning of the live stream. one of the keys to dealing with infectious agents is a lot of times if you let your equipment, your decorations completely dry, a lot of the microbes can't survive that process. MNC Aquatics Starry Nights aren't as aggressive as the wolf cichlids.
Ooh, you think?
Yes, I agree with you on that one. Yeah, those
The
bad
names
boys.
say it all.
The wolf cichlid, you just got to be like, man, is this thing going to eat me? Here we go. Love, dream, and drones.
Oh, do we have
I
it?
got 3 platyfish. They either had ick or epistasis. All died in quarantine before adding them to the Betta Tank and gave them antibiotics. Anything I could have done. I know right now that, and I've had people send me lately questions about, is it ick or is it, is it something else? Listen, I don't know where that original video came from and who made this statement, but I am going to still say that 90% of the time, if you're dealing with something that looks like ick, it's ick. And I can tell you, at least in our experience, every single time I've treated for ick, with very few exceptions, it went away. So that's 40 years, 80 tanks, tens and tens of thousands of fish. It's very rare that I have something that looks like ick that I treat as ick where I'm not successful treating it. So probably ick. And then if it was, the antibiotics wouldn't have done a lot because antibiotics are not antiprotozoal, they're they're antibacterial. So something like ICX, Copper Safe, those are my 2 go-tos. So that's probably what I use. When you see something that looks like ick, it's usually safe to start treating it as such. Because most people are probably not going to be able to differentiate between the two anyway. And because, like I said, 90% of the time, that's usually what it is. So that's a good question.
From Delphina, are Bettas and Ember Tetras good tank mates?
Depends on the size of the tank.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Embers can possibly be a little nippy. We had a Betta in the 15 column tank, remember?
Yeah.
And they were a little nippy.
But was that the
Betta.
Embers or the Golds? I thought that was the Gold
No.
Tetras that were, No. Am I misremembering?
I think so, unless I'm misremembering.
No, it was the Golds.
It was the Embers.
I'm going to have to disagree with you. We're going to have to
Really?
agree to disagree on that one. I specifically
I
remember...
labeled the Embers like, wow, they're so small and colorful. It's so surprising.
Yeah, but I remember seeing the Golds nipping at the Betta. And then, by the way, the trick, I don't remember. So either way, the trick was we fed those Tetras a little bit more and they stopped. So I would say, so it depends on the size of the tank, meaning I would want at least a 10 gallon. 20 would be even better. Keep an eye on them. Make sure your Ember Tetras are well fed and you will reduce the likelihood of something horrible.
Speaking of that, from Sudesh, what's the most active fish for a 20-gallon high?
Most active fish?
Daniel?
Danios are ridiculously crazy. I mean, you've got your guppies, your endlers are really, really active.
True.
Your smaller rainbows, like the Furcadas, the Celebis rainbows, they're constantly bouncing back and forth.
White clouds are always on the move. I don't know if they're like a zippy.
Yeah,
They don't really
they're
have the
not quite. They're
zoomies.
not quite as crazy as the ones we've mentioned so far, but those are all really active fish. Like they'll be bouncing off the walls. All right, what else we got here?
Oh.
What?
All right, Trey. Hope you see this. I am in a moderate stage of Hydra and need some help on eradicating. 4 days into a tank starve, trying to get the endlers or snails to eat it. Suggestions?
It depends on what kind of snails. I haven't really found them. I know places on the internet say the snails will eat it. I had a bunch of ram's horn snails in a tank with Hydra. I don't remember them having a significant impact. I do remember the smaller gouramis will sometimes snack on it, honeys and dwarf gouramis. Endlers, I don't think are going to do that either to help you there. The only time I've ever had problems with Hydra is when I'm feeding live baby brine to a tank, and as soon as that goes away, the problem generally goes away. What's so funny?
Delphina says, we need a how Jason and Joanna met and fell in love storytime video.
That'll be for a future video.
Oh my gosh,
Yep.
that's I have
Yeah.
a funny like image in my head now of like a little story time, where the screen goes like the memory.
Once upon a time. Yeah.
Or like an old
grosso.
village.
We'll do the chromis of different subspecies fight. I have one unknown, Julie. It's either Dickfeldi or Transcriptus. I want to add some Mallory, but I don't know if I should. The more closely, the more they look the same, the more similar they look, the more likely they are to interact with one another. But I would say it's not drastic, not a whole lot more drastic than, let's say, oh, I've got some Lelupi in there, or I've got some Ornatus. It all comes down to space. If they've got space where they can spread out, you're probably going to have a lot less issues. That's why I like to keep them in the 33 longs. I've got the Ornatus in a 20 long, where there's a pair that breeds on the left-hand side and the rest on the right. Now they're kicking out all the juveniles, like, hey, get out of our breeding area. We're getting ready to spawn again. In the 33 long, I've got the Lelupi and the Transcriptus, and they've, for the most part, always left each other alone because they've got a 4-foot space. So the problem, though, that you're going to be careful of is if they do start breeding, you might wind up with hybrids, and that can be, obviously, a thing you don't want to necessarily deal with. Patrick, thank you for becoming a prime timer, primate, prime time partner. Appreciate it. Glad you're here hanging out with us, chilling with everybody else. I want to make sure, by the way, I just want to make sure we didn't miss any super chats. If somebody has, see here, we got Bob Duh. Jason, can you send a link to the polycarbonate lid? I don't remember. I think, by the way, thank you for the super chat. I think that was, so there's two places. One, Amazon has it. So just type in greenhouse polycarbonate siding. They were selling it in like easy ship things, which I think was like 2 feet by 6 feet. So it was one of those things where they could easily ship it, and so it didn't cost a lot. The place that
What mil?
8 mil. Yeah, do the 8 mil. And then the other place was it was something like Greenhouse Megastore Direct. The video that I did on the polycarbonate siding has a link for you to check out. So check out that video because the links are in that video in the description. But Amazon had it because I think what they were doing is Greenhouse Megastore Direct. I'm not sure if that was the name, but I'm pretty sure it was. I think they were just selling on Amazon, which made things a lot easier just for transactional purposes and shipping. What you got?
Barky B, how long do you think small Siamese algae eaters will be fine in a 20-gallon high and it's half planted?
Probably a year. I mean, I still have some in a 20-gallon, a standard 20 that I need to get out. I want to put them in the 125. There's like 2 or 3 of them in a 20, and they've been in there a long time, but they're too big. They're too big for that tank at this point. So at least a year, and then get them out, throw them in something larger. All right, let's see what else we got here. I'm scrolling all the way down now because everything got stuck. Katie, appreciate you becoming a prime timer, primate, prime time partner. Hope you enjoy the crew and the camaraderie. What else you got?
Let's see.
Love Dream Drone, thank you very much for the super chat.
I had something and I lost it.
You lost it, huh?
I did. It scrolled.
It scrolled on you, huh? It got all stuck.
Yeah.
Hold on, I got one. Sudish, would it be bad to put a 50-gallon filter on a 20-gallon tank? That depends on the fish you're keeping, and it also depends on whether or not that 50-gallon filter has an adjustable flow. Most of the time, yeah, because you're probably running a gallons per hour now at, well, most likely between 200 and 250 gallons per hour in a 20-gallon tank. So you're turning that thing over 10 to 12 times. My guess is if you don't have an adjustable flow, you're going to get a lot of water flow. And at that point, you are relegated to fish that generally live in rivers or like, I like this. But yeah, we'd want to be careful there. Garcia Aquatics. Well, hello, Prime Time and everybody. Hello, glad you're here. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Now you got something?
I do.
Okay.
From Knowledge is Power. It's for me. I wanted to try aquascaping for the first time. Do it. How would you suggest I start? My wife wants one so bad for a guppy tank that I haven't started yet. Well, if you wanted to start aquascaping, I would recommend that you, if you have Pinterest, look on Pinterest, or just the internet or YouTube or wherever you want to get kind of inspiration. See what kind of tanks you like, what kind of rock you like. If you want to just go wander around the big box stores, Petco, PetSmart, if you have those around, they do have plant sections and they come in little packages, like real easy, either tube plants or what are called tissue culture plants. Don't get scared by those names or anything. But look around. What you would want are easy plants. They're labeled easy. And just decide if you want to put something into the substrate or if you would just prefer to maybe wedge something between rocks that does not need to be planted. That would be a Nubius. A Nubius might be your new best friend. Everybody who starts usually loves a Nubius because it's one of the best aquatic plants in the world. And it's very easy. You can literally just chuck it into a tank.
Crypts are better, but yeah.
Well, crypts you have to plant though,
No,
and
that's
that
true.
takes
Yeah, no,
a
I'm
little
just-
bit.
I'm
That
just
takes a
messing.
little bit of finesse if you haven't done that yet, and it might get frustrating. Especially crypts can be a little fragile too. So if you start snapping off leaves, be like, so I would start. Go look at the tube plants, see if there's any Anubias. Start there,
Yep.
And then of course whatever rocks, driftwood. Any big box store will have a somewhat small selection, or your local fish store will have a little selection, and just see what you like. Just make sure you know what size tank you have. Look for a tank that they have that same size and make sure whatever you get will fit in there.
Okay, I agree. Love, Dream, and Drone, thank you again for the super chat. And then we got the message here. Also, pH in cage keeps dropping. Betta Tank. Tap water is perfect. 10-gallon planted. Happened within 2 days every day. Okay, so here's the thing. When it comes to pH and KH, your KH can drop if you start having ammonia issues. So that will happen sometimes. And when the KH drops, then the pH can also drop. So if this is a newer tank, and I don't know if you have another, because it looked like maybe it was a continuation of another message maybe. But yeah, just be careful with that because KH can be consumed. I know we don't tend to think of it that way, but it can be, especially if you're having tank cycling issues. Once that is stabilized, so once your ammonia and nitrite are stabilized, a lot of times that KH thing tends to be less of a problem, and then your pH will also stabilize. So I hope that helps. I hope I'm answering the question that where it makes sense. Oh my gosh, a bunch of stuff. I am telling you, this chat sometimes just jumps all around on us. Christy, thank you very much for the 4 months that you've been a member. 75-gallon goldfish tank, times 4. Possible flukes and treating with PraziPro. Any advice? Also, do I clean hose between each cleaning? Flukes is one where, as far as the hose goes, let it dry, and they're not going to survive that process very well. So I don't worry about that as much. If you really wanted to clean the hose and dump some hydrogen peroxide in there and then rinse it out right after that, that's cool. You could do that. 10% bleach solution in the hose would work just fine as well. Treating with PraziPro with the flukes. I don't really deal with flukes that much, so I'm not an expert on how to get rid of them, but PraziPro seems like a reasonable attempt to make them go bye-bye. Master Photographer has now joined us as a primate primetime partner. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Killer Kitty 08, appreciate the super chat. How long will my fish be good in a tote while I move and set up their tank? Tinapoma, do I need to add air? So I generally, while I move and set up their tank, what I would I don't know how long the actual ride is from one location to another, but usually if it's less than an hour or 2 or 3, your fish are probably going to be fine, especially the Tinapoma in the bucket. You could always run a battery-powered air pump in there if you really want to. Even better, if you've got if you've been using sponge filters at all and you want to dump the sponge filter and hook that up to a battery-powered air pump, then you would have even less issues. The tote, I don't know what size a tote is, but let's assume it's like a 16-gallon or a 27-gallon that's doesn't have a ton of water in it. When you get to where you're going, throw an air stone in there just to keep the water oxygenated a little bit more. But we have done, usually when we're transferring over tanks, what we'll do is we'll take sponge filters out of our existing tank, chuck them in our 27-gallon totes, fill them with, usually we fill those with water the night before, dechlorinate it, let it run, let the temperature equilibrate because we're not using heaters in our fish room, so make sure all that's good. We take the sponge filters out of the existing tank, throw them in the 27-gallon totes, put the fish in there, and then I don't worry about it at all. Then they can stay in there for most of the day while we're switching over the tank, doing whatever we have to do. But in a move, battery-powered air pump can go a long way to making sure things are okay.
All right.
What say you?
Matthew, how do I treat a white cotton-like fungus growing on my fish?
White cotton-like fungus growing on the fish. Maricin 2. I would combine those bad boys and go that way. Well, would I combine them? Maybe not. Maybe I would just go with the Maricin first and see how that does. Yeah.
And do you or anybody have any suggestions for a tank light that has a more of a warm light as opposed to the white or bluish?
Yeah. Go. You had one?
No.
Oh yeah. There's just look for any light that is going to allow you to adjust the color spectrum. Mm-hmm. So for instance, like your Fluval 3.0s do that. They're expensive, but they will allow you to basically do that. What was the other light that I was just using that allowed that too, where you can adjust the color spectrum on it? I like the Heigers that I reviewed that I still need to do a long-term review on. I think that was a more it just gives a really awesome color spectrum, and they're not very expensive. But the Fluvals do that. You know, you get the really high-end Kessels. You can adjust the color spectrum there. But anything where you can adjust the color spectrum, usually if they've got an app or something, it's been a long time. Maybe somebody can remind me because my remote controller thing broke. But the Phoenix Planted Plus maybe allows you to do that too. And I have a Heiger planted that I'm going to be reviewing pretty soon, but I have to kind of walk it through its paces to see if it will do that.
I mean, this one's not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I know it kind of washes out. Oops, sorry, I keep hitting the mic. It kind of washes out on video a little bit, but I don't think it's exceptionally. And that's a Heiger, 4-foot Heiger. Yep.
Whips World, I ran a FX5 on a 10-gallon for a while when my 210 blew out, and I was trying to keep the convict fry alive. They adjusted, but they looked like they were in a washing machine for a week or so.
They're convicts. I mean, they're just like, whatever, man.
They'll take it.
We'll take it. We'll just, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give you 1,000 babies because of what you did to us. So, Killer Kitty 08, thank you so much for the kitty sticker. Appreciate it. Let's see. I am scrolling because I saw some kind of a question. I was like, oh, that was a good one.
Oh, wait, what about... Did you get Christy?
Hold on. Wait a minute. What you talking about? Willis?
Right there. You got that?
Yeah.
Really?
Man,
oh
you don't really listen.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm trying to
This
think
is what we go through at home. This is what happens.
Yeah.
I talk and I say all these things, and she's like, oh, wait a minute.
Same here. I'll be like, I told you that. You did?
Actually, I think I'm getting the age, and the boys point this out all the time, where I will ask them a question, and then 10 minutes later, I will ask them the question again.
I've been there.
And then 20 minutes later, I'll be like, hey, so like, Dad, do you actually listen to what we said? Because you asked us this question already. I'm like,
yeah.
Hey, leave me alone, man. Do the best I can. All right, let me see what we got going on. I had a question. Rav? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but is it okay to leave a little bit of water in a 20-gallon planted tank, say 2 to 3 inches, to move it? I want to move it elsewhere, but I'm worried it could weaken it. Would it disturb the cycle? No, that's usually when we're moving tanks around. I just drain enough water to safely move the tank. So if you're leaving just a couple inches in there, as long as it's not heavy and you're like, it's not sloshing all around and hitting you in the face as you're moving it across the house or whatever, that's perfectly fine. And then as long as, so basically if you're doing that, you're just leaving it, moving it over, and then just restarting everything. Just make sure that the water is still in the filter and try to get that started up again as quickly as you can. If it's an hour or two, it'll most likely be okay. That's how usually we work that as well. Go ahead. You look like you wanted to say something.
No, I thought you were going to say something, so I don't know.
You don't know, huh?
I don't know what that was.
Corey says, would you put angelfish tetras, maybe? Angelfish with tetras? Yeah, it depends on the tetras. I've done it with black phantoms. I've done it with white skirts, even though a lot of people say they fin nip. They never touched mine. We've got angelfish in right now with Congo tetras.
I was trying to think who was in
Congos
there.
were another one with the question about the 75 gallon.
I couldn't think of who who was in there.
Congo tetras, Colombian tetras would work out really well. I saw a question about emperor tetras. Have we ever kept those? Yes, we had them in the 150. They can be a little bit, the males can be a little bit rough with the females sometimes, but love emperor tetras. Those are really cool. But yeah, you've got some options there with tetras. Now, would I do Buenos Aires? No. Lemon tetras? Yes. Glow lights? Yes. Candy canes? Probably. Serpe tetras? Most likely. Just be a little careful with those. Yeah.
Corey says, struggling to keep panda cories alive. Any tips?
So panda cories are one of those ones that do really well for us. That's why we bring them in a lot. I actually keep the panda cories on a tank closest to the floor in the fish room because that particular tank where it's located is probably 75. So the panda cories are one of those fish that would actually prefer to be a little cooler than some of the other cories sometimes. But they're also, it's one of those things too, where I'll bring in batches of panda cories and sometimes I don't lose any. And when I say batches, I mean I'm bringing in a lot. Like this last batch that we brought in, I don't remember how many, but it was more than 100, I think. And I think we've only lost a couple, 2 or 3 out of that many. That's pretty good. But there have been times where I brought in cories and maybe I bought 30, 40, or 50 and I lost half of them. So it just depends on how well they shipped and how many stops they made between wherever they were bred or collected and however they wound up at your door. So, but I don't find them to have any real special requirements. And our water is not, I don't think you would say ideal for cory cats in the sense that we're dealing with a pH of 8 to 8.2 and a water hardness of at least 10 degrees GH and KH. But they always do really well for us. And that's not the ideal water parameters. They would prefer something closer to neutral with a slightly softer water.
Boy Roy 61. What is your favorite substrate for a planted tank? I love top fin black sand. It's from PetSmart. It's my favorite. And then just if you have actual plants going into the substrate, I just use root tabs. But there's also for the lighter color. What is that brand?
Carib Sea?
I think so.
Yeah, Carib Sea's got...
Trying to think of Torpedo Beach is one of the colors. But yeah, also a PetSmart or any other local fish store. Those are my favorite. I don't tend to use the aqua soils. I've only used that. It's very light, and I mean you can just cap it with something else.
It's usually not necessary if you're using root tabs.
Yeah.
So you get root tabs, and then you can use whatever you want for the most part.
Whatever you want.
Kyle says, is moss safe in a tank?
No, but I think he also said creek moss. So if you're talking about terrestrial like moss, no. I wouldn't add that probably to an aquarium with fish. No.
But Christmas moss, regular aquarium moss is fine.
Yeah, lots of moss choices.
Moss is another one that likes it a little bit cooler. So I found the best. When we grow moss, the best it's usually on tanks closer to the floor that might be a couple degrees cooler than the rest of our tanks. So
yeah, that 10 gallon. Sheesh.
Yeah, that one really took
moss
off.
Is happy.
That's all I got in that tank, and I'm afraid to put fish in there because that actually would be a tank. So I've got a tank, a 10 gallon. It's in the middle by the sink, and every time I show like, hey, we got all these fish, like we do the members, like I got all these fish, let's check them out. That tank, there's always nothing in there because I've got so much moss in there. 1, I would never be able to catch the fish out, and 2, I kind of want to save that for fish that might either be egg scatterers, where there would probably be a fair amount of fry survival because that moss is basically carpeted the entire bottom of a 10 gallon, and now it's attached itself and grown up the back of the 10, and it looks cool. So I'm saving that for a breeding project, and I just don't know which one it's going to be yet.
Okay.
Patrick says, would a Tidal 110 be too much for a 75 gallon with 2 serums, chocolate cichlid, and blue Acara? Can I still add some small dithers, or am I overloaded? Tidal 110 is a great great filter for that 75 gallon. The titles, keep in mind, they're all adjustable, and I mean really adjustable. So that's a really nice feature on the titles and the Marineland Pros. The adjustability is very, very good. So you can have it come out at a slow trickle all the way to full blast. It's not like the Aquaclears. Aquaclears, I know a lot of you like them, but at least in terms of the ability to adjust it, the Aquaclears, it doesn't have a lot. So you either just kind of slide that thing back and forth, but it doesn't make a huge difference. The titles and the Marinelands make a big difference. Do you have room for anything else? Sure. You know, that's one of those things where if you wanted to throw some giant Danios or some larger rainbow fish, yeah, you could certainly do that. The Philantosis barb is a pretty cool fish too for a tank that size. What you got?
Power is king. Power is king. 2.5 gallon rice fish. How many?
A pair. That's all I would do. In a 2.5 gallon, let them breed and then remove the fry. Just that would be about as far as I would push that, because rice fish are a little bit active, not crazy active, but 2.5 is a pretty small tank. There's not a lot that can go in a 2.5 that you're going to be happy with long term.
Ooh, this is a good one. This is from Nadia. This is ick. I'll try one more time. If mono shrimp eat rummies infected with ick, is the ick gone since the shrimp ate it? Fish only in the tank less than 48 hours and were ridden with it.
No, because the ick is most likely also in your substrate. So in the ick video, we talk about the life cycle of ick, and after the ick parasite feeds on the fish, it basically falls into the substrate and reproduces there. It usually, depending on the temperature of the tank, it can take anywhere from 48 hours or longer. In cooler tanks, that life cycle can take weeks. I would not assume the ick is gone, and I would still treat that tank with, because you have the amano shrimp in there, I would treat it with ICX for at least another 10 days. Try to get those temps up into the low 80s at least, and assume that it's there. Usually after about a week and a half in that case, maybe 2 weeks, then I would be like, all right, let me see if I can add a fish or two in here and hopefully not have the problem. All right, let me see what else you got here. Oh my gosh, the thing just skipped.
Nicole wants to know, can I have a shoal of angelfish in a 55 gallon?
You can while they're young. And then what's going to happen is they're going to start vying for territory. Males will start getting a little aggressive, trying to find a young lady to breed with. And if they find a territory, usually it can be a little bit rough as they get older and more mature, because the angelfish get big, right? I mean, the bodies can get to be about the size of the palm of an average human's hand. And to absolutely minimize all chances of having any issues, I always recommend keep one. You know, if you've got like a 6-foot tank and want to keep multiples, that's fine. And people do it. I mean, we've got a pair and a 40 breeder. We actually had 3 in that tank, and one of them died, but it wasn't because of aggression. But yeah, it's just, you want the fish keeping hobby to be something that's relaxing. And what can be not relaxing is when you start seeing your angelfish going at each other. All right, let me see here. Josh says, hey, I have a 36-gallon bow tank. For some reason, the tank keeps getting cloudy. I set the tank up, took media from an old tank, and it got cloudy, but it went away a week later and then came back. That can happen with a newer tank. You're going to have some water instability issues from time to time. Give it a little bit of time. Make sure you use the cycled media, but even with that, if you've got more fish in them than just the media can handle, you will still periodically get a little bumps in ammonia and nitrite spikes until the beneficial bacteria grow to the concentration necessary to handle the bioload in your tank. So just make sure you're not getting ammonia, nitrite. Let things settle, let the substrate settle, and often that will solve itself. All right, let me see here. Ben says, what is your recommended size for a hospital quarantine tank? Depends on the size of the fish that you want to quarantine. We've got, at this point, we're using about 25 of our 80 tanks to bring in fish and quarantine them. I would say out of those 25, we've got 9, 10, 11, 12. Half of them are 10 gallons, and then the other half are 20s. So both of those are usually pretty good. All right, we'll take one or two more, And then we'll think about calling it an evening, because I know it's getting late for all y'all, but you guys have so many good questions tonight.
Yeah.
Love it.
Oh my gosh.
It's good stuff.
How long do you think it would take us if we answered every single question that came in?
We just watch the sunrise. Yeah, we'll just watch the sunrise.
The longest
Come on
live
in.
stream ever, or everybody be like, oh.
One Machine Monkey, recommendations on centerpiece fish I can keep in a pair or three of. Planted 10-gallon with 5 or 6 odos. Was thinking scarlet Bettas or a pistogramma. Other recommendations. In a 10 pistogramma, maybe like the smaller ones like the Panduro. My first thought was the peacock gudgeons. They're really pretty, and that's one where you could certainly keep at least a pair of those. A pistogramma, so scarlet Bettas in a heavily planted tank, maybe. Yeah, you could do that. Keep in mind with the scarlet Bettas, you're going to keep a pair. The females are basically just brown. They're hard to find too, at least around here. A lot of people don't stock the females because, at least from a store perspective, not a lot of people want to buy them unless they're trying to keep a pair and breed them. And once they start breeding, they're actually not that easy to feed because they're so small. They're so small. Let's see, Anthony says, I have a 1.5 gallon tank, which I have used for a moss grow out tank. No livestock. What would you say would be a good for that tank size? Anything besides shrimp? Shrimp or a snail? There's no fish.
Micro tie crab.
Micro tie crab. Those are hard to see.
They're very
and
hard to see.
especially if you got moss in there, you will never see them. So yeah, I would stick with the shrimp, maybe a snail. That'd be about it.
Yep.
All right, y'all. I think we are going to call it a night because it's getting late. Y'all had a lot of really good questions. Thank you again to our moderators for hanging with us tonight and all the super chats and stickers and everything that came in. I hope we didn't miss anything because they were flying in pretty good.
Yeah.
If we did, like I said, if we ever miss a super chat, please feel free to leave. Just like, hey, I left a super chat. You didn't answer this question. And just leave that in the comments after the video posts because we don't want to, we certainly would never intentionally do that. But yeah, we will be back next Wednesday, same time, same place. If you didn't get your question answered tonight, try again next week and hopefully we can make that work. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of the week and we'll see you next week.
Bye.